Napoleon was born in 1769 on the island of Corsica. As a child, Napoleon actually spoke Italian, like it was custom for 500 years under Genoan rule. When Napoleon was born, the Corsican people wanted their independence, and his parents did help with the fight for Corsican independence, but gave up and made their names French to have good relations with the French government, as they knew that the fighting was over. Napoleon's family had a lot of money, as they were one of the wealthiest families in the town of Ajaccio. Napoleon liked to fight with wooden swords with his friends, where they'd play war games which lasted all day. A few of the play battles could last days or weeks. At age 5, Napoleon to school. He was sent a piece of bread every day by his mother to eat at lunch. Napoleon excelled at history, geography, and math, and loved to read about the great conquerors like Alexander the Great, and one day dreamed of having the fame and influence that Alexander the Great and other conquerors had. Charles Napoleon, Napoleon's father, went to France in 1777 as he received a message to be a representative in the government. Charles Napoleon was able to get his two oldest sons scholarships to military school, but the two boys needed to speak French, so they went to school to learn French. Joseph Bonaparte went to school to study to become a priest, and Napoleon went to military school. In his 5 years in the school, he learned how to build a fort and other important things in the study of military. He also studied Latin, music, history, geography, and a few other classes. Napoleon was bullied in school because of him being a foreigner, and because of his Corsican accent, and because his family was not influential in France. Instead of socializing with his classmates, Napoleon found more entertainment from reading books in the library at the school, where he worked extremely hard to study to do well in school. The studying paid off, as he was selected to go to École Militaire military school in English in Paris, which was a great honor. Napoleon liked the school as he felt like an actual soldier. At the school, he learned how to read a map and how to march in formation. At the age of 15, Napoleon's father died of stomach cancer. October 1785, at the age of 16, Napoleon graduated the school. It took him half the time to complete his studies than it did for most students. In 1785, Napoleon joined the French military as an artillery lieutenant. Sadly, at the time, since Napoleon had a lower-ranking class in the French system, he could not go up in military position no matter how well he performed. 1789, something changed that, which was known as the French Revolution, which helped to bring more equality for the French people. Napoleon did not intend to join the fighting, as he wanted to keep his job in the French military. Napoleon then quit the army to move back to his native island, Corsica, where he wrote a book about the history of Corsica. However, the leader of Corsica did not have a favorable view of Napoleon, and he and his family were kicked off the island for good. Napoleon then moved back to France and would never go back to Corsica. He joined the army again, but this time he fought for the French Republic instead of the king. In 1793, Great Britain, Spain, and the Dutch Republic, and a few other countries, declared war on France. In 1793, Napoleon was sent to fight in the Battle of Toulon. Many at the time thought it was impossible to win, but Napoleon had confidence that he could win. With the use of cannons, Napoleon had won the battle. He successfully captured the harbor. However, it wasn't all victory for Napoleon, as he had been injured in his thigh, which he hated for the rest of his life. He then got a promotion rank, going from captain to brigadier. From captain to brigadier general. And he skipped a few military ranks. Napoleon helped to aid in the defense of the French Young Republic. In 1795, there was a battle in Paris where Napoleon was outnumbered 6-1. However, Napoleon was not worried. Napoleon had positioned cannons near the palace. Whenever the enemy came close, he told all the soldiers to fire, which killed hundreds of the enemy soldiers. Napoleon was then promoted to general, and a few months later, he was to lead the French army in Italy. In 1795, Napoleon met Rosa. He did not like to call her by her name of Rosa and preferred to call her Josephine. A year later, the two were married. They spent 2 days together before Napoleon was called off to go to the battlefield. The Austrian and Italian troops were trying to meet up with Napoleon, but he did not want that to happen. Instead, he wanted to catch them by surprise, so his soldiers had to march 30 miles a day so that he could catch the Austrian and Italian soldiers off guard while the enemy was marching 7 miles a day. Napoleon caught the Italians off guard and successfully won against the Italians. And then he came across a bridge where the Austrians stood on the other side of said bridge. Napoleon's army charged the bridge and won the battle. In Napoleon's army, the morale was high, and this is because Napoleon always believed he would win a battle. So his soldiers believed they would win a battle. This is one of the reasons Napoleon kept winning against the Royalists. Napoleon gave his soldiers gold and riches in a time when most soldiers were not paid very well. Napoleon, unlike other generals, felt like he was one of his soldiers, as he ate the same food as them, and so Napoleon's soldiers loved him and called him Little General, not referring to his height, but instead to his ranking. Napoleon knew he had to get the public on his side, so he set up a newspaper that praised the French army and hired artists to paint him his greatest victories. All of this paid off as the French public grew to love Napoleon. The legend of Napoleon began to grow. In 1796, when his army marched into Milan, he was only 26 and was greeted as a hero. New laws were passed that said that all French men were to join the army for at least 5 years. And soon after, by 1797, the French army was the best in the world. However, Great Britain had the largest navy, so Napoleon could not invade British mainland. Napoleon wanted to invade Egypt so he could build a canal to establish a new trade route, which would make it faster to sail from Europe to Asia. At the time, you'd have to sail across Africa to get to Asia. He took 40,000 soldiers and 10,000 sailors and 400 ships on his trip to Egypt. He also brought historians and scientists to study the Egyptian culture. During the Battle of the Pyramids, Napoleon killed 6,000 Egyptian troops, while losing only 30. Napoleon then marched to the Egyptian capital and made himself leader of Egypt. However, tragedy occurred when 398 of Napoleon's 400 ships were destroyed by the British, so the army was stuck in Egypt until the ships could be rebuilt. In 1799, Napoleon left Egypt by himself, stranding the army, sailors, scientists, and historians on Egypt. During a government meeting, the officials tried to get Napoleon arrested. Napoleon's brother helped to convince the people in the meeting to not arrest him. Napoleon became the first Council of France, which had the most power of the three council government of France. He had also successfully overthrown the government, becoming the official leader of France. Napoleon then set up several government programs to help make the people's lives better, like improving banking, the education system, and building roads in Paris. He also made the Napoleonic Code, which is a law system still used today. Before Napoleon, the laws were a mess of many laws that depended on the town and the person lived in and your social status. Napoleon helped make the law system more fair and equal. Napoleon often worked 18-hour workdays and woke up at 3 o'clock to start working. The French economy was thriving under Napoleon. People loved him, as in 1804 he became the Emperor of France. During Napoleon's reign in France, the country was constantly at war. In 1805, Napoleon tried to invade the UK, and Russia and Austria tried to team up and defeat Napoleon, but Napoleon knew about this from his various spies across Europe. He then headed for Austria, where he defeated the forces of Russia and Austria combined. Napoleon soon surrounded the enemy troops through deception and won the battle. 15,000 of the enemy soldiers were killed, while just 9,000 French soldiers were killed. Napoleon knew he could not invade the UK because of their large navy, so in 1806 he introduced a system in which all countries would not trade with the UK, setting up a blockade of the UK. The continental system made it illegal for any French territories to trade with Great Britain. With the invasion of Spain, Napoleon made Joseph his brother the King of Spain. However, many Spanish did not see this as official and did not surrender, and this took resources away from Napoleon to spend on his war machine. Many of Napoleon's siblings were given titles in modern-day Italy and Germany. In 1809, Napoleon and Josephine were divorced, and Napoleon married the 18-year-old Marie Louise of Austria, the daughter of the Austrian Emperor. Francis II thought that by marrying his daughter off to Napoleon, that it would bring peace to Austria. In 1811, Napoleon had a son, which was named King of Rome. In 1812, Napoleon invaded Russia, which was one of the biggest mistakes in his life. Napoleon entered Russia with 600,000 soldiers. Napoleon planned for Russia to meet near the border. When he entered Moscow, the Russians had burned their city, and he had no food to feed his massive army. Napoleon moved further and further away from France. Napoleon had to retreat as winter came, and came home with 90,000 soldiers, less than 1/6 of his original army. This made the coalition nations join the battle for France. Napoleon could have signed a peace treaty, but did not want to. In 1814, the monarchy returned to France, as Louis XVIII became king. Napoleon was exiled to the island of Elba. He was given the title the Emperor of Elba. During his time, his mother lived with him. In 1815, Napoleon escaped the island prison. When the king saw Napoleon was in France, he ordered the army to shoot him, but the soldiers still admired him and shouted, "Long live the Emperor." The soldiers brought him back to Paris. The coalition alliance sent forces to beat him, hopefully get rid of him for good. At the Battle of Waterloo, he was defeated in 1815 in modern-day Belgium. Before he was beaten, he managed to win several battles. He was then banished to the remote island known as St. Helena in the Atlantic Ocean next to Africa. He had to have Navy ships watch 24/7 to make sure he could not escape. He would spend the rest of his life on St. Helena, died at a slightly young age of 51 in 1821. Napoleon was the most powerful man in Europe for many years, jumping ranks quickly and winning many battles. His legacy has been tainted a bit today, but he will always be remembered as a hero to the French people. The nationalism he planted in Europe had the consequences of 2 world wars happening a mere 100 years later after his banishment to St. Helena.